All right, guys, thanks for listening to our podcast. If you like this episode or any of our episodes, please make sure you subscribe to the channel below. All your support is truly appreciated. So, without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with the General Manager of Budgy Smuggler, Mr. Brenden Hartmann. How are you, mate? How is everything?
Mate, it's all right. We can kind of still operate with our warehouse, like sending orders and stuff. So
Yeah.
kind of keeps us busy. A lot of casual stuff and out home.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I guess I'm not sure if you've seen any of these, but kind of how I try and do it is like conversation style, like so just you and me talking as if we're at the pub. I got a few things I want to ask you, but basically just see how it goes, mate. So cool with that.
Cool. How's the lighting and stuff? Is that fine?
Yeah, it's fine. It's all good. I barely get any on YouTube. I just put it out there just in case. It's mostly just the audio. So
awesome.
So how are you in sorry, what were we going to say? How are you finding lockdown, mate? How's it been? How's it going? Like, what do you make of it all?
Part of me feels a little bit guilty because I know a lot of people have been affected like really harshly. Like my mum, for example, like she runs a beauty salon. She's been shut since the start, like completely shut. But I mean, to be honest, apart from not being able to go anywhere outside of work, I've still been able to come into work every day and sort of punch out at least a sort of 6 to 8 hours a day of just admin. Really, it's been like I said, I feel a bit guilty because my work life hasn't been too affected.
Has it affected business at all for you guys?
Directly, it's just affected our physical stores. So we've got a store in Bondi and a store in Manly. Both of them are shut. Convenient-ish timing with the Bondi one because we were renovating it anyway. But now, obviously, we can't finish those renos until the construction restrictions ease. But we're meant to open tomorrow, the Bondi store. So that just means it's been delayed a little bit, and that's fine.
So just a couple of weeks or depending on how it all ends.
And then, pretty much. And then, look, online's still fine. And given it's winter as well, look, there's plenty of silver linings for us. I mean, it could be worse. We could be in the middle of summer in our peak period and we're in lockdown and no one's buying stuff. So kind of lucky that it's happening through the middle of winter for us. And then on the flip side, we've got a big part of the business that's growing in the UK and Europe.
Yeah.
And they're fine. They've had some of their biggest weeks and days ever. So they're kind of carrying the team at the moment, which is helpful.
Mate, I saw you got named as a Cash Bowl medal finalist. So of all your accomplishments, that's got to be up there, considering I think every year for the last 4 years I've seen you and you're like, I'm not playing. So how did that come about?
Mate, I was saying to Dad, because Dad saw it online before I did.
So you didn't even know that was coming out.
So I knew it was a thing. I didn't realize there was going to be like that much of a thing about it. To be honest, I thought the conversation was more around Hunter, the other Marlins boy that was nominated. But I said to him, I was like, it's funny because like 10 years ago, when I was turning 21, like I would have given everything for this. Like this would have been, it was a dream, like a goal to like be nominated for this thing. And now it's like coming to the end of it. Wasn't really going to lace them up this year again for the third or fourth year in a row. Just going, I don't know if I've got it in me anymore. Slot in for 4 games. And like when they told me on the phone, when Declan rang, I was kind of like, are you serious? How does this system work? Like I've played 4 games and nominated, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like as funny as it is for me, where it's not actually an ambition. It's more of like, this is just quite cool. It's quite funny now. So pretty stoked internally. But yeah, I dare say that there's probably potentially some more deserving players in the rest of the comp.
Well, mate, I'm happy for you. I think I played first grade for like 14 years, and I did not even get close to being nominated once.
I think that's been my last 8-9 years. It's like it's never been even in question.
Mate, it's so good. But apart from that, how's the season been for the Manly boys?
It's been a tough one. It started similar to last year, where like Jimmy Ohmson was named our captain for the second year in a row after not playing last year. So he was named last year as captain, and then round 3 or 4 had like a bizarre sort of knee injury, patella tendon injury, and that put him out for the rest of the year because last year was a short year with COVID.
Yeah.
So lost our captain early. Sam Lane hurt his shoulder last season, like round 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And so there's immediately 2 super influential players in our group and in a key position like 10 and 15. And a similar thing happened this year, dude. Like Jimmy again coming back, named as captain again, and then last trial didn't get through it. I think it was a ruptured pec. It was tore his pec.
Serious injury. Serious.
Yeah. And like both of them are both freak accidents as well. Like that's not like a hammy, like you're underdone with conditioning. Like they're just freak impact injuries.
Yeah.
So that was pretty disheartening. Losing like a big piece of the puzzle. Again, Laney was still coming back mostly through this year, and fair change in personnel as well. A couple of people didn't come back or moved overseas or did bits and pieces. But I think we've got a good group of boys off the field. I think there's just probably more around that sort of rugby knowledge and rugby IQ that probably needs to pick up a bit. I chatted to Declan from Shoot Shield yesterday or the day before. And I think our summary of it all was we've never really been too far off who we're playing. But there's really small moments that get missed. And those small moments are happening too frequently. Literally, they're tiny, tiny details, but they're just happening so often that the scoreline just gets, unreachable. It's been a tough one. Morale's still high. The boys are still keen to get some footy under their belt if we get back from this break. But it's been
Have they
tough.
been doing anything with you guys, like Zoom wise, over the lockdown period, or is it just left to your own devices? Like, how's that all working for you guys?
Not so much some Zoom stuff. We've obviously got the the usual footy group chats and that sort of stuff going. How's everyone going and whatnot? Yeah. And boys have been pairing up and going off and doing doing some running at the fields and some kicking and passing and stuff. So, that's kind of about all we can do officially. For the first part, we're kind of getting together in groups of 10 as allowed, sort of chucking a footy around, playing a bit of touch, and then it'd usually just be split into backs and forwards at that stage. So the forwards would be at another park, we'd be at another park. We'd go through the backline stuff, and that was about it. But with the tighter ones, it's more just find a mate and do some running. It's mainly just about keeping fit at the moment because season could come back, and it's once you lose your fitness, it's gone.
You're telling me. I never had it.
Yeah, mate. I had a run with Laney the other day. We hadn't run for 2 weeks, and it was like we hadn't run in months. So
it's amazing how quickly it goes. Hey, one of the things I really wanted to ask you, bro, is for those that don't know, how did you guys actually start Budgy Smuggler? Because it was kind of by accident, wasn't it?
So Adam Linforth is the owner of Budgie.
Yeah.
He actually bought it off 2 of his mates. They were in the year above him at school. They turned up to a barbecue, like a party afternoon barbecue thing with literally a pair of like Speedo style swimwear from Rebel, and they hand wrote Budgy Smuggler on the back in Texter. And literally that was it. Someone thought it was funny. They said, "Oh, you guys should do that." So they did. They looked into the whole trademark thing, and they got some prints made up. Some like templates made up to have logos printed. It's literally plain pairs with a logo. Founded by two dudes, or heavily involved with two dudes. Tom Malone, who I don't know what he's up to now. He might have moved on, but he was head of sport at Channel 9.
Yeah.
And then Lockie Harris, who, well, there's a few notable things in his life, but the main one is he was Kevin Rudd's press secretary, one of his staffers leading into Kevin 07. I think Kevin 07 was actually Lockie's campaign.
Okay, so he's good at marketing.
Yeah, but their vision for the brand was just a bunch of dudes getting loose in minimal clothing.
Yeah.
So Kevin becoming Prime Minister was kind of a liability on Lockie's books. So he offloaded it to Adam, and we ran it. We ran it from Linny's apartment for, I don't know, years. So long. We've only just moved out to a new warehouse now, in the last sort of 3 to 4 months. But yeah, it's just been a bit of a project for Ads. It was kind of just in his back pocket for ages. He had a full-time job working with AIM Mentoring. They did mentoring programs for Aboriginal high school kids.
Yeah.
One of his best mates started that. So he had Budgie on the side. I joined in just over 8 years ago now.
So how far after the start of it did you jump in?
So Ads, officially 2003, 2004, those two boys started at Lockie and Tom, and Ads bought it off them around 2008. And I came in around 2013.
And so did you come in as the general manager, or what was your role?
No, so mate, at the time, Budgie was small. I just finished uni. I've finished a bit of proper footy, and kind of that was done. And so I was coming back to club footy and just needed a casual job, and it just fluked it. I'd organised some custom pairs for the Marlins.
Yeah.
Turned up to pick them up. Just got chatting to Adam. Had mutual interests and both got along really well. And then he kind of said, "Oh, mate, give us your number. I'll give you a call later in the week. See what you're up to." Rang me that night and said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" Started sending orders. Like we're talking 8 years ago now. Budgie, we would have had 10 orders a day through like a busy period. So there wasn't too much to do. I'd go in for a couple of hours a day, send some orders, order some stock, post some stuff on our Instagram, and go home. And that was about it for the first sort of couple of months. And then it just sort of started getting a bit of momentum. Footy teams were getting on board, and it kind of grew from there. He decided that there was a full-time role in it. So I kind of just had that sort of on my plate, sort of on my own for a bit. Ads would go off to work. And then he'd come back in the arvo, we'd chat about how the day went, and I'd go home. Now we've got 11 full-time staff here in Sydney, and 5 overseas in UK and France. So it's grown a lot, and it's been pretty awesome to be part of and watch something grow, and like being able to contribute to something and actually see your own efforts as like what the result that produces. It's really cool.
Yeah. So I didn't know, I thought Budgy Smuggler was a relatively new company. So, the term, I guess the term overnight success is never really reality. It's always like a 10 to 12 year thing. What do you think it was that took you from just part-time to actually going, this is how I'm going to make my living? Like, what was it?
I don't know. I think part of me was just, then I was a 21, 22-year-old kid just playing footy for Manly. So didn't really have any grand plans for life or whatever. I'd finished a business admin and sports management degree. And again, didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. Part of me for a long time wanted to get into the athlete management or sponsorship side of things.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it just kind of grew, and because I had so many touch points across the business, it was just a natural learning progression of how to run a small business. And then it kind of got to the point where Adam sort of realized that, having someone around on it, focusing on it all the time was a good thing. And we kind of just scaled it from there. It kind of never really got to a moment where I was like, hang on, there's something here. it just grew. And before I sort of realized, like before I sit down and look back, yeah, there was never a moment where I go, this is what I'm going to do. It's more just a gradual thing. It just became part of my life. I mean, even a few years ago, I still had family saying, when are you going to get a real job?
Really? And you,
So
and you guys,
yeah.
from the outside, it looks like you guys are killing it. And even your family was saying that.
Well, even not so much in the last recent few years, it's more earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, to a point when it was like, when are you going to get a real job? We've got one. It's a growing retail business that's global. I mean, and there's no ceiling for this kind of business. Like the growth opportunities are endless. And we just enjoy making stuff as well. Like we make all of our swimwear here in Australia.
Yeah.
Sadly, there's a few items of clothing that just can't be done here. So we're trying to change that, which is, again, isn't just an awesome thing. We just enjoy making things. So the more things we can make here, you get it's a bit of satisfaction around doing that. So one thing that we're trying to do at the moment is, so underwear is really tough to make in Australia.
Okay.
There are places to do it, but mainly since Bonds left Australia, they went overseas. There's a lot of machinery that was just thrown out and that doesn't exist in Australia anymore. So one thing we're working on at the moment is to bring that manufacturing back and set up like a swimwear and underwear manufacturing hub in Sydney and things like this. So like there's awesome projects that are happening that are much bigger than us as a company. So yeah, it gives a good feeling of satisfaction sort of doing this sort of stuff.
Well, why did you always intend to manufacture in Australia, or did you ever explore the Asian opportunities with the factories over there? Like, what was the thoughts behind it?
So a lot of it was driven by Adam initially. So all these decisions were largely made before I came on board, but we've just been the ones to drive it since then. The decision was originally around, so going overseas, for example, there's obviously a communication barrier to some extent, depends which areas you go to. But the biggest factors were back then the time, the production time. So getting a stock order of say 1,000 pairs of budgies at the time would have taken maybe 8, maybe 12 weeks, depending on what you're ordering. Whereas here in Australia, we can turn around a stock order of 1,000 pairs in less than 2 weeks.
So whilst the upfront cost might be less, the time cost sort of outweighs that.
Yeah. So then it goes into like a whole cash flow sort of thing. It's like you got to, fork out the cash up front when you can't start selling that product for 12 weeks. There's a quarter of the year gone. So like in terms of a cash flow thing, it was kind of that, yeah, the product's more expensive to make here. But I'm really glad we kept it here because just advancements in technology and manufacturing now, the cost that we can make pairs for here in Sydney now is only a couple of dollars more than what it would cost making overseas.
Okay.
We've got some machines now that do all the laser cutting. And a lot of people have thought that like we'd put people out of jobs by getting more machinery. It's not the case. Like with Wayne, who is just a local guy that was cutting our stuff from the beginning. He's working more hours and earning more with this machine. So instead of him cutting them by hand now, he's the one that's pushing the buttons. He can cut more pairs per hour than he could by hand and more accurately. So there's a few good things that have come from keeping it in Australia. I mean, and again, a quality control thing's a massive one as well. Like imagine waiting 12 weeks for a stock order and like they turn up the wrong color. So like if we're making smaller runs here, we can get on top of like any errors that pop up really quick.
Very quickly, yeah.
And then we jump in the car and we drive out to the factory and sort of hand them over and say, hey, what happened here? You can't really do that overseas.
No,
Um,
but particularly in China, particularly at the moment with the way the world is, you can't even fly over there.
can't leave the country. Yeah, so there's a few positives, and then that opened up the door for like our custom swimwear side of things for surf clubs and schools and whatnot, where a lot of the big sort of people that manufacture overseas, they sort of hold the bigger groups like schools and surf clubs to like really high minimum order quantities.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll make one of something if people wanted it. Turnaround's quicker. So yeah, there's a few reasons I'm really glad we kept it here. Yeah.
What about your marketing strategy? I was having a bit of a look on Instagram, and this is only my take on it, but there's like a bit of a pirate ship kind of, not common man, but like every man type strategy, every woman type strategy behind it.
Yeah.
Is there a strategy behind it, or did it just happen organically?
There's a bit of both. So like if you look at, let's say, let's go look at Speedo. A lot of their marketing and a lot of their audience are like proper swimmers, like they're athletes. They're the ones sponsoring the Olympic team at the moment, and that's their market. They've nailed it. But like that doesn't really cater for everyone in the country. That's like the top couple of percent in the country if you're talking about athletes or just people in general. And then there's other brands. Take Aussie Bum for example. A lot of the marketing is directed at dudes that are quite shredded. They market the Aussie lifestyle overseas really well.
Yeah.
But again, like not everyone's shredded. Like it's not a realistic body type. Like how many of us even look? I don't think I've ever looked like that in the peak of my footy fitness.
You and me both, brother.
Yeah, like it's not a thing. It's marginally.
It's more rare than it is common.
Yeah. And then so we kind of just went, well, like we're just average dudes. We like footy, we like beers. Like we'll just target this towards people like us. And our sort of analogy of that was we're targeting like the top of the bell curve. As like you've got your athletes in the top couple of percent. Because like we're targeting the top of that bell curve. And it's just your everyday human, your everyday dude. They'll go for a swim. Like they might, have a bit of a mud gut sort of situation going on, but so be it. Like our whole attitude to the swimwear thing is like it's not really about the rig in the pair, it's more about the bloke or the person in the pair. So and we've kind of done that like it's the person that leads the team song that everyone loves. Like that's the kind of bloke that everyone wants to get around. So they were the people we targeted.
You've done some really clever and fun things like the most ordinary rig competitions. Tell us about that, because I could imagine when you first tried that, it's like a little bit of a risk, maybe. Like, was there a little bit of nerves about it?
It's funny how it came about. So so our office used to be in Manly, and it was just an apartment. And we got a call from some young fellas one arvo, and they said, "Go, we're in the car, we're on our way over. We didn't know if you had a shop or not. Can we come pick up stuff from your office?" We're like, "Yeah, guys, come in." They turned up, and they were just a bunch of young kids from Penrith, fresh rats tails, but they were legends. But we're like, "Oh, what's the occasion? Why do you need them so quick?" They're like, "Oh, we're flying out to schoolies tomorrow, where we've been getting so ripped for this week away," and we were kind of like, "Guys, like, if this is what 17-year-old boys are like focusing on, getting ripped to like go on a holiday, it's kind of like, guys, I think you're missing like a big point in life, is just to enjoy yourself." And so that was kind of the driving one for it. We're like, fuck, we got to do something about this. But we've always wanted to do a swimwear parade, and just we didn't want to like go down the same route of something. And so like naturally our brand is always taking the piss out of things. And so then we figured we'd take the piss out of the Victoria's Secret show. which is the polar opposite of the blokes that we put in these swimwear. They're like glamorous models. These dudes are just ordinary blokes. And that was literally how it was formed. Like we go, how do we take the piss out of something famous or well known and do it in a cheeky way? Kind of floated the idea at the pub a few times, and that's where a lot of our ideas come from, is just conversations with people, normal people that go, yeah, that would be funny. And it was born. We sort of did a social media campaign around, nominating a mate or nominating yourself. We set up a questionnaire that people could fill out, and so we do like a profile on people that nominated themselves. Like any hidden talents, and what's your perfect date, and all this sort of stuff, like the usual stuff that people have a laugh at. And then nominated a top 10, and we flew them in from around the country.
So you spent a bit on it.
We did. But the beauty of being such a small business is we can kind of just do that without having to get it approved from like corporate above or whatever. It's like it's private business. Like if Adam says yes, we're allowed to do it, then so be it. Like there's no one really to answer to. There's no stakeholders. There is a board, but it's not a big one. But yeah, we can do this sort of stuff, and it doesn't really have to make too much sense financially. It just has to make sense on some level.
So I can imagine with that kind of thing, you have this fun idea, and the boss is like, "Yeah, that's fun. Let's just do it and see what happens." And then all of a sudden, it's become this thing. You didn't do it last year due to COVID, but I imagine it'll.
Do last year due to COVID. We've done it 3. What have we done? We've definitely done twice in Sydney. We've done 2 Australian legs, a UK leg, and we've done an Ashes of Ordinary. So the top 3 from Australia versus the top 3 from that UK event. And they all came here and they competed as a team. We split it into segments. Each team had to, and same structure for the Australia or UK event. The first segment was the Fallen Angels segment. So they had to create their own angel wings out of whatever. So literally straight from Victoria's Secret, had to make their own angel wings. People made big blow up cutouts of like barbecue chicken wings and like bin chickens and things like that, where someone actually made like 5 foot high feathered white angel wings, like with a harness over the shoulders. People made them out of VB cartons. Like that was so funny. Like it was so Australian. It was ridiculous. And you've never seen so many of the same dude in one room either. Like all of the nominees at each event we've done are such similar people. It was awesome. And like you could imagine, like I said, you want the bloke that sings the team song. Imagine 10 of those dudes in the same room. They were just immediately best mates. So we've created this weird, like a fraternity or alumni of all.
You've created a community. It's a community.
Yeah. And it was all originally around just wanting to change the perception of who could wear swimwear. Like who the fuck says you can't? Like it's only really like upstairs that sort of your brain goes, oh no, I can't wear that. But if you're seeing these kind of dudes, they're the funny guy. Like why not? Like so it was fun, and it turned out to be a success online as well. Like it sort of creates a bit of content for a few weeks. It's we've now got a community that's more valuable than any sort of dollars could bring. Like we value our following our community more than anything in the business. And we always have this focus of we've got to look after the people that are already in the tent before we worry about anyone that's not there yet. So
it's interesting for someone like me who's trying to start a business, and I'm like 6 months, a year in, and everything that I see and everything that I look at, community is really the critical part to a business. And I kind of feel like that's where rugby's gone badly in Australia for the last couple of years, is they're trying to cater to people outside of our community, rather than go, hey, who are our people? Let's look after them. So was that a conscious decision by you guys to sort of create and cultivate that community? Or was it something that just happened and then you've gone, oh, this is actually really smart and, you know, really valuable to us? Like, how did that work for you guys?
It was definitely deliberate.
It was
a bit of a study on, you know, other brands and how they'd gone, and, you know, what were some massive companies that don't exist anymore, why are they not around, and a lot of them just, it sounds absurd, but a lot of the businesses that, you know, were massive 5-10 years ago aren't around because they grew too quickly, and that sounds absurd to say,
but it doesn't as well, because you kind of lose track of why you started. And
exactly. And so, like, for us, someone who's been a really good sort of like business mentor for us, originally started with Adam and now sort of myself, is a guy called Andrew Rich, who was one of the founders of Mambo with Dej Jennings. And he's been sort of, he's had an influence on both Adam and myself over the years. And the story of why we focus so heavily locally was off the back of Andrew, and Adam sort of met with him one afternoon and they were going through plans of Budgie, and Andrew's like, what do you want to do? Like, where's this going, mate? Like, what are you going to do with this? And Adam's like, I want to go to the States. I want to get everyone in America all over this. And he's like, cool, sweet. Like, great plan. You know, how much are you selling at the moment? And Adam was like, it's a bit of a blunt question. And he gave him a number. Let's say at the time, so let's say it's about 100 grand. He goes, I sold 100 grand worth of stock this year. She goes, right, cool. Your company doesn't even exist. And Adam was kind of like, the fuck? Like, that's a bit of a kick in the guts. And he's like, your company don't even exist. Like, why would anyone in America buy it when no one in Sydney knows about your brand? He's like, you got to focus local. And so literally from that point, it was, we focused on owning our own backyard, and we literally took it as hyper local as Manly Beach. We got heavily involved in the rugby club, the cricket club, a lot of swim groups at Manly Surf Club and that sort of stuff. And then once we felt we had a good sort of foundation there, we sort of expanded it, and it was like, let's Northern Beaches and let's do, you know, the beaches of Sydney. And then it sort of grew from there.
How did you take it to obviously the rugby club's easy for you, but for the other local groups, was it a matter of just going to them and going, hey, this is what we do, would you guys, are you interested? Or
pretty much. And it was kind of like, again, it's like building a community. It's like, you got to provide something to them. Like, why would they want you on board if they're not getting something from it? So it's like, as harsh as that sounds maybe, but like, we wanted to provide value to other people in our community. And, you know, part of it was just because we love our community. Like, both of us are Manly boys. So that was easy for us. Like, we both knew a lot of people around the area. You know, Adam's roommate is Stephen O'Keefe, since they left uni. So Manly cricket player, Sydney Sixers, New South Wales Blues, that sort of stuff, has a couple of tests for Australia. So he's got his cricket network. He's like, I had my rugby network, and like, there's two big sports on the beaches. So we kind of just focused on where we could get like really low hanging fruit. Both of us grew up in surf clubs. Linny was at Palm Beach, I was at Freshie. And, you know, people we've picked up over the years have their own sporting connections and community sort of circles. And you sort of rely on people. Like, people's our biggest asset. Like, yeah, manufacturing's great. Like, we make here, and marketing's good and that, whatever. But our biggest asset's our people, and like how ingrained each individual is within the company in their own little communities. Like, and that sort of builds like an attachment to the brand. But yeah, we really started locally and sort of built from that. So like, when, like, it's funny because we've had people come to us in the past and like, what do you call them? Capital investment groups and whatnot.
Yeah.
Saying that we can give you, you know, this much money and you'll grow it, you know, 200% for the next 2 years, 3 years, or whatever. And I'm like, all right, what happens after that? It's like, I don't want to deal with that. Sounds like a lot of headaches. Like
Yeah.
growing at a consistent rate for the next, 5 to 10 years is what appeals to us most. It's like, we're not in a rush. Like Adam said it multiple times. It's like, well, he is the sole owner of the business. He doesn't plan on getting out anytime soon. He's not driven by something like that. He's driven more by being able to provide value for people, whether that's, keeping manufacturing here and providing jobs, or if it's just providing, income and work for us, like meaningful work for our staff.
Yeah.
And comes back to the fact that he also just enjoys making things. Like Adam's probably one of the more hands-on owners of a company that I sort of have come across. He loves getting his hands dirty and what's the next product we're bringing out and stuff. So,
Do you think that attitude's helped you guys? Because I'm asking purely for selfish reasons, because there's a lot of people struggling with COVID at the moment, trying to start their own businesses, and kind of I see people who are trying to start a business to get to that payout rather than to provide jobs and a service and to build a community. Like, so do you think that attitude has been a big influence for you guys?
That's not saying that like sort of goal attitude is wrong at all. Like people do that all the time and they fucking nail it. Like people sometimes fluke it where they make apps and things and like a huge business will, like Google, come in and buy it. Like, fuck, fantastic. But for those that don't really have like a point of difference or like something remarkable about the brand or the business that they're trying to build, whether it's like, it's either got to be something real niche where you're solving a problem in the world, say, or the community, where like a lot of apps come into play, like how do I get food delivered to my house? Uber created an Uber Eats, like that solves a problem. Whereas, take a retail brand, for example, like there's lots of people that make clothes. Like how is one brand different to another? But yeah, I think it comes back to like, what's the business, what's the company's why? Like, why are you doing this? Like, and for us, our why is just because we enjoy making things and we like having a laugh. We're not doing this to make money. That's just a result of our why. Our why sort of is the basis of everything. And let's say it gets to a point where Adam's keen to sell it. Like, awesome. That's just a result of why he's doing this in the first place. So it depends. It depends what people want to get out of it. But you'll find that if the why is a more intangible thing, the tangible things become more valuable, if that makes sense. Like in the end, that's the result.
100%. You can. I think human beings can see when you're not doing it for genuine reasons, and I feel if your intentions are good, I feel like that comes through. Mate, talk about expanding outside Manly. How did you attack
that? Slowly. We had, so obviously online, like you've got access to the world. So we were sending orders globally.
Even at that point?
Yeah. And we were doing it really poorly. Like we used to send our orders. We used to walk to the post office in Manly and buy like packs of 10 post bags, walk back to the office and we'd handwrite the orders, like the addresses and whatever, and send them out. We'd walk back to the post office to put them in the post box and whatever. Thankfully, it's a bit more sophisticated now. But yeah, sending stuff overseas was a bit of a hurdle. A, it was expensive. B, it was taking too long to get to places. And then you start talking about customs and import duties and stuff. And like, these are things that so many people overlook until it happens. So we saw that online, like all our statistics and numbers that were coming through, that the UK was our second highest place for orders and traffic to the website. And so that was the next frontier. Like the big problems that were popping up was it's too expensive for shipping to get there. So customers were essentially paying, say it's $50 for a pair online, they'd almost have to pay 30, 35 Aussie dollars for the shipping if they wanted it. May as well buy another pair. And then on top of that, because their import duties, their levy is so high, so low, they've got to pay another like 20, 30% on top of that just to get it in the country. They've got to pay that to the government.
So it's working out like over $100 for a pair of,
And that was obviously our problem to solve because they're our customers. We were here to solve problems. So the next frontier for us was to build a base in the UK. Made sense for a number of other reasons. Like if we're going to go overseas, you obviously want to start with an English-speaking place because that's the lowest hanging fruit. You don't have to learn another language or another culture. And the big sporting community was a big one for us. Like we kind of pop up everywhere in rugby, and their rugby over there is massive. Like they've got clubs and divisions coming out of their ass. Like there's so many of them. So that was kind of it for us. We were kind of like, yep, sweet, let's do this. Adam at the time had not worked full time for Budgie yet. He was still working for AIM mentoring, and we had this operation set up running pretty smoothly. And he's always at the time he kind of said, "There's no point in me coming in and demanding the best car park now. I'll go overseas and I'll set up UK." So he pretty much more or less copy paste how we started Budgie here, minus, the learning, or additionally to the learnings that were made. So none of the same mistakes were made. And he kind of grew it from there. And that's where we've got 4 full-time staff now, and 1 now in France.
You just mentioned that you had some mistakes. Something I've been looking at in my own life and a lot of the people around me is the concept of failure. And I actually think failure is critical to success because that's how you learn. Can you recall, without going into whatever detail you can, but any like mistakes or failures that you guys had that sort of set you up for later success?
Yeah, thankfully there haven't been too many like massive ones where we like sit back and cry and we go, fuck, we just ruined the business. Thankfully there's been nothing like that, but we've blown unnecessary cash on things that haven't worked in the end. There was one campaign we did around the Brexit sort of stuff, and I'm almost certain no one saw it, but we had a PR company come to us and we're like, this is a good idea. We kind of looked at it and we're like, yeah, it's pretty funny. Ended up costing us like 50 to 70 grand in just raw cost, not even our people time. Like we wrapped a bus with don't worry about, what was it? Leaving the EU, ? Come join the AU. And it was like this whole thing around, don't worry about Europe, you don't need them. Australia's got you covered. It was kind of just a bit of a piss take, but it ended up costing us so much. And like we'll promise the world by this PR company. Great campaign, but the result was minimal. Like we could have spent that, advancing our manufacturing. Or we could have hired someone else for that, and they could have run a different campaign for 12 months. Like instead
is that so you look at something like that, and like something that really interests me about like reasonably large businesses is if you're paying for a campaign, how do you sort of judge whether it's successful or not? Is it purely on the returns, or is it following, or how do you guys look at that?
Yeah, so the easy stuff to measure is obviously the stuff that comes through the website. And because we've had such consistent growth over the years, we kind of know when there's a bit of an anomaly happening. Like this time of year, for example, like we're in a bit of a dip at the moment, but if we suddenly start seeing spikes, like there's something weird going on, like it's not just happening for no reason. So we look for those whenever we do something like that. Measurements of orders, dollars, and traffic to the website. They're the 3 sort of main ones. The others sort of that we look at is, put a measurement on purely the quantity of sort of press that would come out of it. So if there's a couple of articles written, how much reach was there online? If we're talking social pages, news.com and Lad Bible and Pedestrian TV and those things, do they pick it up? What's their following and whatever. So they're kind of less measurable, but still measurable. And then you start going into the awareness side of it. It's like you can't really measure that. It's really measured in pub chat. Like if someone mentions it at the pub to their mate, it's not a measurement, but like you can kind of get a vibe, and you're like, oh, at least someone heard about it, kind of thing. And that's where it gets really difficult. And so like you see like big like multinational businesses with their billboards and TV ads and whatnot. It's like, how do you measure it? There's the old saying that like someone doesn't make, like if they've never bought from the brand before, it takes them at least like three or four like encounters with the brand before they start recognizing it properly. And that could be hearing it on the radio, seeing it on the TV, and then driving past a bus ad before they actually start recognizing the brand. But like it's so hard to measure.
So you kind of got to hit it from all angles, and then just sort of look into it as much as you can, and take what works.
Being so small, like we've always focused on where we can get an immediate return. As like we didn't have the time, the resources to stuff around with like things that we couldn't measure. So we've literally just been spending most of our time on where we can see a clear and like deliverable result. You look at, there's the beauty of online, like you can see where clicks come from, you can see where orders come from, like it's black and white, it's in the data. So we've focused heavily on that for the past like few years, but we kind of always also focus on like getting multiple wins, like say we bought a van that we needed for deliveries. Like we bought an Old Australia Post van. It's massive. It's awesome.
I think I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we wrapped it in a stupid print. We wrapped it in a donut print initially, and now it's a rubber duck print. But like, not only is that now facilitating our orders pickups, it's also a rolling billboard. Yeah. That van also gets used for the pop-up events that we go to at surf clubs and sevens tournaments and whatnot. So it's like it's serving multiple purposes. It's more than one win. Like it's not just a van that we drive to the warehouse. So like those sort of little things as well is kind of where we focus. Like if we partner up with say a team or a club of some sort, it's great to have our logo on the back of their jersey or something. But at the same time, like that can't be the only win. Like there's got to be multiple that come from it. It's like, is there a community that gets built on top of that? Is there, who are the local businesses that are involved in that club? Are they going to order maybe custom swimwear for their staff for Christmas? Or like a couple of different measurable results, more than just what's black and white, is where we kind of focus our attention, or what we sort of aim to get.
Yeah. Did you have a job? Well, sorry, were you in business before starting a Budgy Smuggler? Did you ever work in any other industries or businesses?
So I pretty much just finished uni at the time. And so mainly just casual jobs, but we got into so I was doing like surf education stuff on the beach. At Manly, we'd take high school groups and like the later primary school groups, teach them about surf safety and that kind of stuff. And the other one was myself, Harry Burgelin. We were helping a bloke at Manly Bowling Club run his Barefoot Bowls events, mostly in arvos and weekends. And look, to be honest, we didn't see too much of the actual business side of it. It was more the entertainment side, like, talking to big groups of people. We'd have groups of 50 on Friday afternoons for corporate lunches and stuff. So like talking to big groups of people and sort of like directing people around and just running an event style thing. But that was really my only proper experience, and the rest of it, I mean, I was so fortunate with the timing, that I was able to just fall into a very, very casual job at Budgie at the same time that it was just about to start growing. Yeah,
So,
whether it's a coincidence or not, or it's the result of someone coming on board, but we'll never know.
the reason I ask is because, you've basically learnt this business from the ground up and seen where it
And
started.
that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Did you have?
Yeah. So like, I wouldn't have had that experience ever. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, how much have you had to learn over this period of time? And did you, apart from the Mambo guy, did you have any other mentors that helped you? And did you ever reach out to people for advice? And like how did you navigate that? Because that's a pretty massive thing to learn for a young guy who's never really had any other business experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. There've been a few people that have sort of popped in and out, and you just sort of pick things up along the way. But to be honest, a lot of it is just learning on the run, and like, a lot of my job now is like solely just around our people, the brand we're trying to build, the people we're trying to recruit or like develop, and just our systems on how the place runs, whether that's here or in the UK or in France. It's all similar sort of stuff. But I mean, like take COVID, for example, last year was like no one's encountered that. So there was no one to lean on for what to do there. And it was literally just trying to wing it and go, I'm just trying to make the best decision I can while keeping people in mind and the business in mind. I was like, how do I get a win out of this? Or at least the least amount of damage. COVID was the hardest thing for me because it's a tight group, on top of the 11 full-time staff, we've got, another 11 to 15 casual staff. And, last year we pretty much had to tell all of our casual staff, sorry, you don't have a job for the time being. I don't know when you can come back. But here's the government stuff they said you can apply for. It's like, and that's it. Like, that was like heartbreaking to say that to people who like I've helped grow as human beings. And then at the same time, we've got our full-time staff who just have so many questions, and like we're all a similar age. Like there's 2 or 3 that are older than me by a couple of years, but they're still looking to me for an answer. And like, I'm just going like, I don't really know what to do here. We ended up making some really tough decisions, but ended up doing it as a group where, and so many people would have gone through this. So I know we're not alone. But like, to the point where full-time staff were taking pay cuts just to get the business through. And, at the time, an indefinite time period, where, some businesses definitely didn't get through that. The learning on the run has been the biggest teacher of anything. Like I've always said to Adam as well, I was like, Matt, I'd love to go do some more study and whatnot. And like a lot of his response is like, why? Like essentially you are doing a business course every day. You're not going to learn this kind of stuff from a textbook or an online course or from a lecturer. You might pick up some things here and there, but you're learning every day. As running a small business that's now turning into like a small to medium kind of thing. So yeah, the learning on the run's been the biggest teacher of anything.
What did you learn about business and people from the last little period of time within the last year? Has that improved your skills as a business person and a leader, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing I learned with dealing with, like, obviously it's a really shit situation, and no one really knew what to do if we're talking COVID specifically. But I found the easiest thing, which was it wasn't hard. It was more just like it wasn't common for people to do. It was just to have an open conversation with our staff, and it was just a conversation around I really don't know what to do here. We're going to have to like pitch in, and it's going to suck for a bit of time. Like, I don't want to do this, but I think this is what we need to do. What are your thoughts? And you kind of like include people in the really hard decision making. Because if, flip that around, let's say it's just an internal conversation in my head or with Adam or whatever, and we both agree that we're going to cut staff wages. Imagine walking into a room to staff and saying, sorry guys, even though you're not working at the moment, because you're not working at the moment, we're going to cut your salaries by 30% or something. Like, that conversation is so different to how it was. And I'm thankful, I'm happy we did it the way we did it, because people really responded well to it. Like, they were really receptive. They were understanding. Transparency was a big one for me, as like learning how to run a business and a team. Was just, you just need to have these open conversations, even though they could be awkward. But like, they're conversations that are more necessary. Imagine if it was an email, even worse.
I'm sure people did do that, by the way.
100%. And that's the thing. So like, now my own, I don't know, call it a motto. It's not a motto. My own sort of internal process now is that the more awkward or the more serious a conversation is, the more it needs to be done in person. And like, I'm talking like face to face, sit down in a private room and make it personal, and just explain situations and give all the context you can possibly give. Because that ultimately, like, people respect honesty. And yeah, the tough conversations are always tough, but like, it feels amazing after, on both sides of the fence, because the other person leaves the room going, fuck, he actually cares. He told me everything, and he told me things he didn't have to tell me. Like, yeah, it's just the transparency especially with a team of people was the biggest thing I learned in the last few sort of months, and say 18 months.
I think you and I have both been in rugby teams where coaches will drop a player and then not really give them a straightforward answer as to why. Countless times. Whereas if someone goes, you didn't do this well, you didn't do that well, you need to do this better, and you'll get back in the team. That's a very different way of going, text message, you were dropped kind of thing.
Yeah.
I won't take up too much more of your time.
That's
I'm
fine.
really grateful for this. I've learned heaps already. As you look back, were there any sort of big moments where you've gone, like holy fuck type moments, for lack of a better way of describing it? Like, even my own little journey, I've had a couple already where I'm going, fuck, I'm starting to get there. Did you guys have anything like that?
It usually happens around Christmas every year. And it's like, it's whenever we like reach a new milestone or something along those lines. Like, each Christmas is obviously our peak, and when we top the peak year on year, it's always like a massive sense of achievement. Like, that's our grand final. That's our grand final. That's what we aim for every year.
Do you write it down? Is that like a goal that you guys aim for, just to be better than the previous year?
Yeah, pretty much. And like, there's a big tick in the box, and it's like, this is awesome. Like, think back to, myself 8 years ago. It's like, we'll get more orders in a day in December than we did in like a whole month back when I first started. Like, it's changed so much. And like, those sort of moments happen like a couple of times a year with this growing business.
Yeah.
And one was recently when we moved to this warehouse. So we used to have an office being run out of an apartment in Manly. We had a small warehouse in Brookvale where our orders were sent and our stock was held. And like, even then we were kind of like, this is a sick operation. Look at us go. This is fun. Look at us running a business.
Yeah.
And then like, moving to this place now, we have a whole warehouse downstairs. We have a whole distribution facility downstairs. Upstairs, we have office space for, I mean, we've only, like I said, we've only got 11 or 12 staff. There's enough space up here for 30 or 40 people. But like walking into this place when we first sort of got it, we were like, fuck, this is actually a real business. Like before was we were taking the piss. Like now this is getting to a point. And I mean, the reality is there's way bigger companies than what we've got here. So I'm hoping we keep having these moments as we go, and it's what keeps people here as well. Like they get to experience this. Like this is why we've kept the team we've had for so long, and why we keep adding great people to it, is because they want to be part of something that's growing and like they can contribute to it. So there's been a few moments like that.
You know what's been interesting about that is you just sort of focused on the people side and the growth of the business rather than, I think I saw the last Rugby World Cup, every single team was wearing Budgy Smugglers. You know, and to me that would be a holy fuck moment. But the people side of it is more important.
Definitely. Like I guess that sort of stuff comes off the people stuff. Like we've built relationships with people like rugby players around the world just because they've popped up, and we sort of make an effort to engage with them and ask them about their life and whatever. It's not just like, hey bro, here's a pair, can you post something for us? It's more about like, so specifically in London, Jimmy, who looks after the UK office, is really good at the people side of things. You know, he'll jump on a train for an hour or two and head up to Newcastle to have a beer with like a footy player up there and just talk to him and whatever. Like it's those little things that make a big difference, which was how we were able to get pairs to all of the World Cup players 2 years ago, last year. Which is why we were able to get pairs to those sorts of people. But it all comes off the back of people. Like that's where we've focused our main attention. We just want to make people feel something. We don't want people just opening a packet and they've got a pair of swimwear like added to the drawer of all the free shit they get. We want them to feel something when they open it, whether that's a professional rugby player or people like you and I, just, you know, running around park footy or coaching or whatever, just everyday people that want swimwear. We've always kind of focused on the people.
What's the grand plan for Budgy Smuggler, if there is one?
Good question. So each year we sit down and sort of map out every 3 years we map out like a 3-year plan, and then following on every year we sort of map out the following 12 months to get to that 3-year plan. So we just set our 2024 goals 3 months ago, and it includes things like we'll have 3 more stores in Australia. We'll have a store in London, whether that's a combined store and office set up. We'll have another one in France. We want to have like manufacturing under our own roof. Like, so say if this place we're currently in now is big enough, you know, we would have machines running downstairs making things. Like it's all incremental things. It's not like, I was about to say it, but we do want to get there at some stage. Like at some stage we want to provide all the Olympic uniforms. Like, and like that's not just swimwear. Like we want to go everything. Like we just, like I said, we enjoy making things. We're going to find a way to make more than just swimwear, which we have done. We've just made like some socks, like cotton merino wool socks made in Australia, which isn't common anymore. We've just made underwear. Our first batch of Australian made underwear we've just figured out how to make. Going like there's no 2030, 2050 sort of plan of like Budgie's going to be 12, 14 figure company. It's just an incremental thing. So we plan it 3 years ahead, and we keep those goalposts sort of set, and that's what we drive towards. We kind of pick our head up from time to time and look a little bit further ahead, but then head back down, and we're sort of aiming for those sort of things. So there's no there is a bit of world domination plan in there, but it'll be incremental and built around people.
Mate, let's finish on this last one that I always ask everyone. But what advice would you give 18-year-old BJ?
That is a good question. Why it's so enjoyable, or why it's so easy for me to stay. Like, I've been at this, in this role in this business now for 8 years, and like that's a long time. Like, for a lot of people, it's like 2 generations before me. Like, people were staying in jobs way longer than that. But our current generation, they'll stay in a job for 3, maybe 4 years and jump ship and move on to something else. The reason I've stayed, and it's not like I've wanted to leave ever, but one of the biggest reasons why I think I'm still here is just because I enjoy it. So 18-year-old Brenden is either, if you wanted to have a better crack at footy, get fit. But if not, and business is the way to go, then it's got to be something that you enjoy, because you spend 70% of your life doing it. So yeah.
Mate, I've enjoyed the hell out of this, mate. Thank you so much.
Awesome. No, thank you. I love telling the story. I really enjoy it.
Well, I didn't know half of that. I've done a little bit of research, but I try not to do too much, because I find it just guides the conversation too much. And
cool.
You know, if you let things flow, you tend to learn more, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mate, hopefully we'll see you guys again this year.
Hopefully.
Are you hearing how they're going to do it all, or is there?
Not really. It's I've only from the articles that pop up, like Goldie's Rogue suggestions.
I saw that. I like that, actually.
It's not bad. It's a way for everyone to actually stay interested.
Mate, the Manly South grand final, I can see it now.
It would be decent.
Mate, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time, and catch you soon, bro.
No dramas. Thanks, bro. Anytime.
I'll catch you, mate. I'll let you know when this is out. It'll probably be a couple of weeks, and
no dramas.
Just let you know.
Awesome, mate. Enjoy. That was
Thanks,
good.
dude.
I enjoyed that. Thanks,
Thank you, mate. Catch ya.
Yeah, bro.